Do you like that? That's my shopkeeper's look. My shop, my. Hello, sir. Would sir like to try on some new trousers? Would sir like to buy some stationery? Would sir like something for the weekend? We have some excellent prophylactics from the Transvaal. Suits you, sir. Suits you, sir. How are you all keeping? I hope you're all keeping well. It's Saturday morning. I had a beautiful night's sleep last night. As you can see, I'm effervescent and relaxed. A good night's sleep always does that to me. And I hope you're all keeping well. It's Saturday, mid-November, in a cold, blustery, but still quite nice northwest of Ireland in October. October, and the leaves are stripped bare of all they wear. What do I care? See, I still want, because Bono's a knob at Davos, I still can't give up on their music. Anyway, I hope you're all keeping well, and let me show you something I'm mulling through at the moment. It's Mallory's translation of the Grail Mysteries, the story of Saint King Arthur, and it's look at this, from Green's Bookshop in Dublin, 1886. Look at those edges, 1886, and so it's been in Ireland since 1886, and even though it's published by Sir Walter Scott's publishing company in London. And one of the Green's Bookshop only closed about 10 years ago. It used to be a beautiful bookshop on the corner of Merrion Square and at the back of Trinity College. And it was in Nassau Street. And it was literally diagonally across from where Oscar Wilde grew up. So, and it used to have all books out in front. And it's an awful shame it's gone now. It's like CBGB's in New York, or lots of other places. It just makes you sick that, all the greatness of the old world is gone. It's probably a fucking Starbucks or something now. But it's worth thinking that, this may have been on the rack at Green's. Outside, they used to have these fantastic wooden, sort of very beautifully made. And they were 100 years old even when I went there. Outside the shop with racks of books on them. And this could have been on it. This could have been picked up by Oscar Wilde and fingered through it. Ooh, suits you, sir. Or fingering was probably not a necessary, at the correct pun there. James Joyce. Right across the street was not one dip down a bit. Was Finn's Hotel, where he met Nora Barnacle, who worked there as a maid, and he was probably fingering. He was probably fingering his way through this as well. Smells of Nora Barnacle, and Lord Wesley. But yes, what a way to start a fucking Saturday. Anyway, it's kind of difficult to read. It's tricky. It's written in that. See, it seems to me that Victorian literature is in two styles. There's the sort of the highly lovely Robin there. That's probably Oscar Wilde. A highly narrative, highly descriptive, highly sort of detailed, narratives like Dickens or Victor Hugo. And then you have this style, which is almost like a series of essays that, so it begins with the Book of Marilyn, and that's where I start on. Very interesting. And it finishes with the world after Arthur the Morth, the death of Arthur. And then it goes through the Galahad and, all the others in between. And so that's this style. Bram Stoker's Dracula, he would probably finger through this as well. There has to be a better word than fingered. But he probably fingered through this as well. Anyway, while he was at Trinity. So, this is why one of the reasons you buy antiquarian books is you don't only buy something that's fun to read and changes your consciousness because the syntax in the literary prose is different than we have in modern novels, but also because there's history there. Look at that. So fascinating. Anyway, that's what I'm currently mulling over. I was I got an approach this week from a major electronics company who wanted to advertise. I thought it was a joke at first, or some kind of spam or scam or something. Uh, who wanted to advertise on my Beyond Room 313 videos, and we identified your channel as a popular and a growing a channel with tremendous growth potential. It was nice to hear that. And would you advertise? And I thought I thought it was a joke, but I contacted a friend who also has a channel who's been monetized, and he says, "No, that's legit." It was an agency basically. It's an agency that contacts YouTube creators on behalf of companies who want to advertise. So it's like an advertising agency, but they contact YouTube creators. And so yeah, it was real. And I spoke to the woman on the phone, and the money was good. It wasn't rubbish or anything like that, but. And there was a 15% discount off items. And but what I had to do was like you see, I know that I joke around a lot, like the fingering thing, right? And I know I joke, and that's. But I take my work extremely seriously. I take, even though I'm taking the piss and having the crack all the time, when it comes down to business, I'm a typical Irish person. I work hard and I play hard. Well, what used to be Irish people, and sometimes people that don't understand the culture that I come from see me joking around and laughing around, and they think I'm stupid. There's kind of an autism out there. Uh, that's literally what I have to deal with that sometimes. Like I'm not going to take any of his work serious because he's always telling jokes and laughing and acting weird. This kind of thing. But because they don't have a full consciousness, and I do, and you guys do, you get me. But I take when I say if I'm making a film about anything on BR313, that's extremely serious. That's business, and I really don't. Even though I could do with the money, I'm not. I wouldn't feel comfortable going, you know, to like for instance, like I do something really esoteric and interesting, and I start on that. And I go, today we look at the Archimedean paradox in relation to reincarnation cycles. But first, here's a word from our sponsors. And then a video plays and I talk over, the new range of, I don't know, dildos, whatever, are made to satisfy even the most demanding customer. Blah, 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 blah. And you call in with this code, Alabaster Buttocks, and subscribers to this channel will get a 10% discount and free, I don't know, fucking light bulbs, whatever. And then I go back to I just wouldn't want to do that. It would cheapen not only the message I'm putting out there, but also it would also I just I just wouldn't feel I just feel tacky doing it or something. Now it was some kind of product that was compatible, like some kind of, I don't know, something that would like, say, a documentary channel like Mark Fenton Productions. He makes all these very good World War II generally videos, and he does some of the ads he runs, sponsorships are for documentary channels. Or then I'd say, well, that isn't too bad. Or a book club, then I'd probably do it, because it's not because I'm a socialist or anything like that. I'm Irish, I'm working class North Dublin, and we don't do socialism. We want to make money, work hard, and get rich. That's the culture I come from. We don't do socialism or anything like that, or think it's poverty is a curse. No, we want to get rich, and but we want to work hard for it, and. Then I might do it, but for the right price too. I wouldn't do it for even. But there was also the other thing was you have to sign a contract. I don't know. I feel owned or something. It's just not me. But anyway, who knows? Down the road, if some appropriate sponsor came along, but not this one was actually this one was a very respectable company, and I used their products myself, and they're excellent. But it still wouldn't have been right. It still wouldn't be right. But that's the story with that. Then, so I'm just happy making some beer money off the ads now and again, and that does me fine. That's as things stand at the moment. But it was nice to know that I was marketable. Oh, that surprised me. It was nice to know that people that I was actually that I'm actually marketable to a mainstream thing. So that was a great surprise. But anyway, speaking of marketing and tech, what's his name is playing a blinder. Elon Musk. He's it's absolutely amazing what he's doing. He's basically closed all the Twitter offices because all the psychotics and the purple haired and 45 genders are all having hissy fits. And so it's a great idea. Close the factory for a few days. Close the company down for a few days. The ones who are sentient or semi-sentient and realize, I need this job to pay for my wife's operation or put my kids through school, they will go back to work. But the ones who are like, who are philosophically driven, they'll just destroy themselves. The high end ones will get jobs in other companies, but the majority of them, well, I was looking at the Twitter office. The Twitter office has been closed and most of the staff been let go. I was just reading, guys, there's huge amounts of vacancy in the fast food industry in Ireland. Learn how to make French fries. So I've been waiting for years to say that. But yeah, that's what he's doing. He's just letting the trash take itself out. The hissy fit drama queens with purple hair who never had to work really hard in their lives, who expect to be pampered every moment, and got that from Twitter. They've all been screaming and hissy fitting. But the ones who work there who go, "Nah, I need this job. It pays for my hobbies. I'm into mountain climbing. I need it, or I need this job. I just got a mortgage." They'll all go back to work and they'll be fine. And the other ones will just end up destroying themselves. The ones that don't aren't at a higher level. But that's good. We want that. It's evolution. It's woke is dying. Woke is really going downhill fast, and that's a good thing. It's just a trend anyway. It's just you have to remember that most humans today are just recently reincarnated farm animals. I know to you Christians, you find that amazing, but to pagans and Hindus, in fact, to every religion in the world, with possibly the exception of Abrahamism, and even Abrahamism in certain rabbinical Jewish sects, believe in reincarnation. Christianity and mainstream Judaism and Islam are just about the only religions that don't believe in reincarnation. Everyone else does, or recurrence. And so that's what happens. That's why there's so many literally sheep today, NPCs, because this could also be why the globalists are getting rid of all the cattle and all the animals and the cattle and the sheep, because your reincarnational cycle after cattle is human. The stage before human is bovine. This is why we have veneration of bull cults around the first ever god was a bull or a cow, and that's why the Boyne Valley is named after Bowen goddess and all this stuff, and that's why we developed the gene that's nearly 6,000 years ago that in the Caucasus that allowed humans to digest lactate acid and therefore we could ingest cow's milk. Those people who say we're not supposed to drink animal milk are idiots. That's you don't know nothing about nothing. That's lots of cross species drink. You'll see monkeys drinking from goat's milk and everything. That's not true at all. Anyway, there's lots of cross lactate ingestion in the mammal world, not just humans and cows and humans and goats. But so the reincarnation cycle begins. The way to see it, it's very interesting. I was just trying to describe it to someone the other day, and you've heard me talk about Aristotle's paradox before. I think it's Aristotle. The paradox of how you can draw, you have, say you have an LP, right? And the LP has 7 tracks on it, right? If you put a mark on the outside track on the album at the beginning, and then near the center on the last track, and then watch it go round, of course the two marks will always be parallel. They'll always come together. So any point on the smaller circle in the middle and any point on the larger circle on the outside, the larger track, always travel around and come back at the same speed. And yet this makes no sense in terms of conventional physics. It cannot be explained. It cannot be explained why this the mark on the inner track has much smaller distance to travel, say that, than on the outside of the LP that has to travel this distance. Yet they come around together. It can't. No science can explain it. You're going into the world of quantum fields, quantum theorem. And someone like Brian Cox, for all his science, the absolutely gorgeous Brian Cox. Someone like him wouldn't even touch just one of these things they can't explain. They're only smug and arrogant about things they can explain. So this is why Formula One racing and cycling, indoor cycling, they spend huge amounts of time trying to understand this paradox. How come a Formula One driver who takes going around a hairpin bend, who has far less distance to travel around that inside of that hairpin bend than the driver on the outside, and yet they go around the hairpin bend at the same speed, they arrive at the other side at the same time. It totally defies the physical world that we live in. This Aristotle's paradox. I think it's Aristotle's paradox, and it's called. And so you think of your reincarnation cycle, right? The highest of all life forms on Earth is humans, right? There's nothing higher than us in terms of the reincarnation cycle. So you're a cow, and then you die, and then you're reborn on the first track on the album, right? And you're going around, and you have to learn about life. You're an NPC. You've only just become human. You're only learning about life, going slowly on the outside, right? Now, your eventual aim is to get to the point in the center. That's like from, say, so, if there's 7 tracks on on one side of an album, you begin on track 1 on the outer side, and then when your thing is to move towards the spindle in the middle, right? I'd say in my development, I'm probably just over halfway, track 4, right? So the NPCs are, when you get to the spindle in the middle, you literally become a kind of a god. It's like what Franz Kafka said: the world just dances at your feet, and you don't have to do anything, and you become an extremely enlightened being. So, but you have to learn all the ones in between. So all the NPCs on the outside, they're having to learn what it is to be human, and they don't have a fully developed consciousness, so they go around the circle with you at the same speed. Now, if they progress and learn in this cycle, if they attain enlightenment, and many don't, they go on to track 2, so they're closer to the center for the next, I won't say reincarnation, I'll call it recurrence, and I'll tell you why in a second. The reoccurring aspect. If they don't, if they become profane in this life, they will go back to the herd animal, a cow or a sheep. Generally a cow. It's sheep, then cow, then human. And all different animals have all different cycles. So you weren't a cat in the previous life. You were a cow and something, then a sheep before that. Before that, you've been something, I don't know, some kind of like yak or something. And then that would go before that. Then prior to that would be an insect kind of cycle all the way down to an amoeba. But anyway, they've gone from cow into human, right? So if they profane in this life and they really fuck it up, they go back to being a cow. If they are neutral, they stay on track 1 for the next recurrence. And if they're good and they're smart. Now, when I say recurrence means living the same life over again. And this is what I strongly believe. You reincarnate until you hit human. And then your job then is to have progressive recurrence in each life. Now, recurrence is living the same life over again. And you might say to yourself, oh, Jesus, I have had such a miserable life. I don't want to live this life over again. But that's the purpose of recurrence. The purpose of recurrence is to undo in the next life what you did wrong in the previous version of yourself. So, for instance, there's things in this life, in this manifestation, that I definitely want to fix in the next one, and that's why I'm actively, say, I'm at the second half of my life. I'm into it now, creating carrying this with me to the next world, the next recurrence, so I can mistakes I made I can fix, and especially advantages I didn't take advantage of. Like putting that on, in the next recurrence, I'll put the ad on my BO 313 videos. But no, no, that's a joke. But yeah. So that's the whole point of that. That's why you don't go back in time. You don't go forward in time. You recur. You recur. And the idea is to get to the spindle in the center, and then you've attained the kind of godhood. A kind of godhood. But so and if I'm on track 4 now, and I fuck up on this life, I'll go back to track 3. But if I was really fucked up, I'd go back to being a farm animal. See, like, you understand what I'm saying? And this also explains and this is also because there's more animals, herd animals in the world than ever. There's more humans, and there's also more NPCs. This is why the majority of mankind today is, and you say, like, track 1 would be NPCs, track 2 and 3 would be normies. Track 3 would be normies emerging into enlightenment. And track 4, where I am now, would be the first stages of enlightenment. So think about it that way. It's very good, interesting, and and then it goes better. You get better as you go to. You have to work on yourself, and so this explains. So basically, because we had all these herds of cattle in the world, millions and millions and millions and billions of them. We now have billions of people. Okay, and they're all recently reincarnated herd animals. They're all cattle, right, basically, but they're all sheep as well. And that's why when they call them sheep, it's kind of literal. So these NPCs are only learning how to be human, and like herd animals, they're just, when the bell is rung, they go and get their food. When they're prompted by cattle prods, literally, in the human world, and so I think at some levels of the secret unknowns, they believe all this stuff as well. And they have to, because it's the truth, and they know the truth. And so they're trying to limit the amount of humans being born in the future. So a part of doing that would be removing all the cattle. See, so less cattle means less NPCs in the future. So that's one of the things they're up to. And one of the, and that's also why the growth of veganism, because far more people remember the horrors of the slaughterhouse when they were butchered as a cow or a bull. They remember it. And that's why there's a growth in veganism among the NPCs, is because they remember the horror. Well, not necessarily a bad thing. They remember the horrors of the slaughterhouse that they went through. They brought it into their first human manifestation. And so, and people I know who will, you can jump from NPC right up into 2 or 3, because some NPCs will suddenly have tremendous enlightenment. I mean, I'd like to think that my work is doing that. That my purpose in this world is to help people move towards enlightenment, to get to the spindle at the center of the record player, But that's the Aristotle paradox. So it gets easy. You do less work to complete the circle. So an NPC's life is difficult. It's drudgery. It's hard work. It's suffering. But to get around, where someone on track 7, they'll just sit there and they go spin and they get around faster and quicker. And that's because there's less effort needed to complete the Aristotelian paradox. So it's on the way from track to track. You think yourself the record arm and the needle, you're moving along towards the center. And so that's what reincarnation and recurrence is. So, but you can also shut yourself off, like lifting the record needle off and turning it off the record player. That's what atheists are doing. And when an atheist says there's nothing, you see, you get the reincarnation you expect. Seriously. So when an atheist says there's nothing after, it's just oblivion, there's nothing after life, well, they get nothing. That's why you atheists have to be very careful, because you might be missing out on the chance to correct or do the things that you wanted to do in this life in your next recurrence. And Christians also kind of shut themselves off as well. Although most Christians by default go back to recurrence because they don't, the majority of Christians don't really believe in heaven. They don't. Even devout ones don't. They just, it's just, if you get them down here, they say it's a nice idea. That's the what you get out of them. It's only the most infantile and childlike ones think they're going to be playing a harp in the clouds, in space kibbutz. But so recurrence is important. It's important. So this is why when you make mistakes in this life that you regret, you remember you have a chance to repair them in the next recurrence. And so that's very important to bear that in mind. Now, that doesn't mean you can act be a complete bollocks and asshole in this life because you can fix it in the next one, next recurrence. No, you go back to track one and you'll find that your life is more difficult. It's very much similar to the karmic cycle. In fact, God, you get it all on this channel, don't you? In fact, the game of snakes and ladders, or snakes and chutes, as Americans call it, which is based on a Hindu children's game called Maksham Patam. And it's a very ancient Indian game that's used to teach children about cycles of karma. That when you go up a ladder, you attain a karmic sort of account in your bank, increases your karmic portfolio. If you go down a snake, you go down the karmic cycle. But, and it's interesting because their board is 111 squares. It's 11 by 11. Interesting, eh? Like I said, people subscribe to this channel for a reason. They get stuff here they don't get anywhere else. And I was looking at the game Snakes and Ladders, and I think it's about Samhain the devil. You don't get that here. But I'm trying to get you onto the next track, guys. And, you get yourself in the next track. I'm trying to show you how, you can rig the game. Fibonacci's Casino and all that. But anyway, yeah, so Maksham Patam is the Hindu game, Vedic game of snakes and ladders that teaches you about cycles of karma. So that's also very similar too. And so it's very similar to the karmic cycle of the Vedic world. Now, so what's the purpose of life? The purpose of life is to attain enlightenment, to become, as I said, the spindle at the center of the circle. Right? So that's a corrective process through multiple, perhaps thousands of times, because you go back and forth. So when you get to the very top, you're like in the elite, and you have, no, I don't mean that kind of elite. I mean the elite soul development, and you have to go back and forth all the time. Now, having said that, things happen in history. Remember, we're all going around the record player at the same time. Even though we're on different tracks, we all meet at the same point. We all experience the same things at the same time. And then there are multiples and all other causative factors in there, and qualitative and quantitative factors that impact upon that on a bespoke personal level. So you have things like you might be disabled, you might be suffering from post-traumatic stress, you might do socioeconomic class, you might be dealing with family curses and hexes, hereditary curses, and so that's all individual things per your track. But in terms of the overall structure, your recurrence is still spinning at the same speed as everyone else. So just that you have put less effort into it as you get to the center to complete the same karmic cycle. So so a part of that is the development of the psyche. Okay, psyche being the Greek word for the soul. And how do you do that? Well, you don't do it by mauling rosary beads and sitting in a church. The Irish learned that the hard way. You get out of the church and you go and make world better. You get up off your knees out of the church, and you go into the street and you go and help people, okay? So that €10 you're going to give to the priest, you give it to a homeless person on the street. That's what you do. You become this is again, we're back to Hinduism. One of the reasons I constantly go back to Hinduism is because Hinduism is today what paganism would be today if the Roman Empire hadn't become Christian. So it provides a good comparative software. And if you read all my books, I'm always making references to Hinduism and comparative theology, basically. It's spiritual tradition, would be probably a better way of putting it. But where was I? Back to Hinduism. I forget what I was going to say then. Maksha and Patam. I forget what I was going to say, but the enlightenment and it's about putting action. You see, Tina brought up a fantastic thing the other day, and she says, "I can't believe these people who think all these swamis and Buddhist monks who sit there meditating and rotting away is some kind of spiritual enlightenment." She's absolutely true, 100%. 100%. They're never escaping their track on the karmic cycle, and it's only Westerners that think that. People in Asia are very much of the sort of like it says in the Bhagavad Gita, which is sacred to both Buddhists, Hare Krishnas and Hindus especially, that Krishna says to Arjuna that action without that consciousness without action does not bring thought into the material manifest. So it's no use sitting around on your arse wondering about stuff. You're given this stuff in order to create. This is why I make such a big deal about create. God, this is gonna be a long video now. You're probably on your first pot of tea. You've got to create. You've got to do it. You got to do that shit. You got to own that shit, bitch. You got to own that shit. No, seriously, you do. And so it's no use sitting around while you're still on your karmic recurrences or your life cycle recurrences and not doing it. You've got to get it and do it, And this is what when Krishna said that. When Krishna said this, that you fight Arjuna, fight, which is an expression you've heard me use all the years you've been following my videos. What he was saying was, Arjuna, you cannot be sitting around thinking. You've got to put intention into action in order to unleash the manifest. And so that's the purpose of life. But the thing is, you cannot put the consciousness into action and create the manifest if you don't have the consciousness to do it. So therefore, you've got to work on your enlightenment, on your consciousness. And this has been the central theme, not only within Hinduism, but also within the European esoteric field, within all the sort of like going right back to the Greek and Roman mystery schools, the mystery traditions, all through the esoteric and Western mystery schools, through Freemasonry, Rosicrucianism, the occult revival of the late Victorian era in the 1950s and 60s and 70s. It's all about this. It's all about, if you don't have an idea worthy of putting into the manifest, then it won't manifest. So you've got to work on that. You've got to get this thing here. This is where it's processed, but it's not actually, it's actually all around you. But you've got to put the consciousness, you've got to develop your consciousness. And this is the greatest way of flipping your consciousness, of developing your consciousness, is to take it out of conformity. So this is the problem. This is why the NPCs have tremendous trouble getting from track 1 to track 2. Because it's only if something traumatic happens to them, like their child gets cancer or something like that, or they have a disability, that they're forced into focusing in that stream of psychic energy to jump into the next track. Now, it doesn't have to be trauma. It can be enlightenment. And as I said, the way of enlightenment is, the path of the warrior, that's very common in Asiatic cultures. You know, the way of the weird in the Anglo-Saxon way. What Christians might call it St. Paul's Road to Damascus. You might call it, a mission quest to Native Americans. You know, the same, a shamanic journey. But that doesn't mean taking loads of peyote and going into the desert all the time. It's things like this, like reading, like there's a very simple example I gave at the beginning of the video. This is a book from 1886 sold by Green's Bookshop in Dublin, right? I could just pick this up and go, very interesting. A book of Arthurian legends, sit there reading, oh yes, it was very interesting about Sir Galahad. Oh, it was very interesting about Parsifal. Yes, I read that. It was very good. But that's not raising your consciousness from the book. Raising your consciousness from this is going, well, just look at this book. Maybe James Joyce read this. Maybe Oscar Wilde picked this up. It was right across from his house. Wow, I'm holding a book that Oscar Wilde had. And this is the Enlightenment. You see? You've taken something that was just pure material, right? And then you have, through a magical process of wonderment, you have brought this to the next level, but you brought yourself to the next level. And then you think about things, gosh, could you imagine what the person, like the man here, his name is J. Coffey Farrell, Coughlin Farrell, the guy who signed the book. And it's written in an old ink pen, like a fountain pen. So what was his life like? He probably bought this in 1886 from Green's in Dublin. And so he may have been born during the Irish famine, What was this man's life like? And he probably died in the 1920s, so he lived through World War I and the Irish War of it. Well, what was his life like? That's enlightenment. It's that simple. And then you sit there and you just think, you imagine what he might have looked like, what he might have dressed like. So that's how you alter your consciousness. You don't have to take a load of fucking drugs. You're now in a different frame of mind. You're now in a different... And suddenly, when you start doing things, people say to me, where do you come up with all these ideas? Because I was like this sometime I was a kid. I grew up in books like this. Okay. Michael Harrison's The Roots of Witchcraft. This is a sublimely intellectual book. I read this when I was a teenager. I got it in the Bamba bookshop in Dublin. In the 70s, there was thousands of these really well-written books. Forward by Colin Wilson, no less. And instead of reading, instead of watching, having all the stereotypical things, this is where I first discovered that Joan of Arc was probably a mystic, a pagan mystic. And again, boom, suddenly I'm in different consciousness. And you are too when you see something. It's not just a case of, oh, watch this video. This guy says that the elites are, this, that, and the other, and they're using Samhain to control the people. That's him doing it for you. That's not actually, even me. What I'm telling you right now, if you only watch this video, you're not in a state of moksha patam. You're not ascending the ladder. You're not ascending the chute. Ascending the ladder. You're not going in. You're going down. You're staying on the same square, the same track. You have to now go out and do that for yourself, and do your own exploration. That kind of thing. So I may have said something in this about, I mentioned that Bram Stoker picked it up. You might go on to Bram Stoker. You might go and buy. You might go and buy a hardback or a paperback, or find an old paperback of Dracula. And then you start reading it, and then you're reading it, and you're going, you might be going to the part where it goes, as we traveled across the Danube, there was a distinct feeling that we were moving into a different reality. And you go, well, that's interesting. Watch, I've had those experiences when I went to visit my cousin who lives in Scotland. He lived, it was the town and the whole area he lived in was nothing like I'd ever experienced. That's that. You understand? And you think about that. And go, oh, and then go, what was the history? And you go, what was the name of that town? Oh, Kirk something. And you go online and you just Google it. Oh, Kirk Clady. Oh, well, it means the Church of Clady. And Clady was an old Scottish word. And then that's how you do it. You understand? It's not, you have to get the consciousness into a state of the burning of fire inside the consciousness of man, of yourself. And then that allows you to attain the manifest that you want. This is the secret of the occult I'm giving you here. This is what people who go to Freemasonic lodges spend years doing. This is why I don't get involved in politics. I don't bother with any of that shite. I want to explore and develop my own kind. For instance, after all these years, okay, I grew up in Dublin, y'all know that. I made a documentary called Occult Dublin. I know from a young age, thanks to Harrison's book, I took an interest in occult, and I also found out through into things like geomancy. So, long before the internet ever was even a thought, I was going around Dublin going, why is that shape on that building? Why is this building pointing this way? And through all the years of exploring and bringing in other people's work to help me, I I came to the conclusion that Dublin was venerated to the god Apollo by the Masons, the city's Masons, and the Apollo Lodge began there, and so it's an Apollonian center. Now, all cities have a magical gateway. It's a magical gateway or a hellmouth. It serves both functions. Now, you know, some cities like Turin, it's well known in the piazza there, with the statue of Castor and Pollux. That's been known and it's spoken about. And nearby is the gateway to hell. Okay. Now, in London, you have Charing Cross Station. Charing Cross Station is the magical gateway to London, big time. And so, if there's a mystical experience of arriving in London through Charing Cross Station, because in front of the station is a series of columns that lead all the way up into central England, and what they are is they're magical nodes that bring you up. So this is why the energy around Charing Cross in London feels tremendous. There's tremendously powerful energy there. You're at the magical heart of London. I found Dublin's magical centre. I'm not going to just tell you where it is right now, but my God, it's fucking amazing. I finally found it, and it all fell into place when I just realised what location it is. And I'll be making a documentary or a short film on BR313 on what the magical centre of Dublin is, and this will blow your mind, and especially if you're from Dublin or you know the city. But I finally nailed it. I finally found it. And it all makes perfect sense in all the Masonic, occult, royalist kind of things. It all just fit right back to Queen Elizabeth and the Tudors. But they knew exactly what they're doing. It goes back much further to the Vikings. But I found it. And it all in this end made perfect sense. And it's actually on the north side, the south side of the river, where the Apollonian. I now starting to think now that the Apollonian aspect of Dublin is the north side of the river, because I can only find Bucraniums over there. I can't find them on the south side. So the Bucranium cult is central to the Apollonian cult, and they're all over the north inner city, but they're not on the south side anywhere. And the temple of Apollo is the customs house on the north side of the river, and it's a big deal. That's enlightenment. That's how I'm enlightening myself. So forgetting all about politics and all that stuff, only seeing it as something to measure the psychic weather, allows me to grow my own creativity. So that becomes a documentary, a film on BR313. You guys are watching, you go, oh, that's very interesting, that's a lot of bollocks. It doesn't matter. It's a creative process. The creative process came out of an explorative idea inside my head. So this is why you see that I always share videos and podcasts and stuff like that from people I really like. It's because we really have to go on this journey together. Now, regarding going on this journey together, I can't talk too much longer as I have to go back to work. Regarding this journey of going on a journey together, the veil is thinning right now, big time. Lots of people are seeing cross-dimensional realities, and they're also seeing flashbacks from their previous recurrence. So people are telling me things like they went down a street and all the houses were not the houses that are there now. They were completely different houses or different buildings or different shops. But on the same street. That's happened to me actually when I was growing up as a kid. That's a slip back into a different recurrence. Same dam, they went back over. The veil thinned between two tracks and they went back to they went over to the previous track. And people are seeing pets that they were dead a few years. And in the corner, they're walking they're walking through their house and their dead dog is there in the corner. And and then they look around again, it's gone. That's not the ghost of their dog. They've had a deja vu or something similar that's flipped them back to the previous recurrence. And likewise, you can have a look at a future recurrence. You'll see something that doesn't exist now, but might exist in the future. The veil is thinning everywhere right now, everywhere. Now we're also entering a very powerful time in the development of human consciousness, and there's all the stuff we're dealing with, the Rona, the entity attack, from the unhuman attack that came from outside this reality that led to the Ronas and the lockdowns and all the shit we're dealing with a lot. But that, you see, these challenges are also spiritual attenuators. They focus us down to our spiritual state of being and close out all the extraneous energies and frequencies. And then when we're in the state, we're more likely to have paranormal experiences, the veil thinning. We're seeing recurrences, that's why sometimes you might see UFOs. They could be your occurrence in the future, seeing a technology that doesn't exist in this recurrence, and so on. I have loads of experiences like this of, like, I spoke about I have a very distinct memory of a shopping mall inside the GPO in Dublin. Now, not the arcade at the back. I know about that, but there's another shopping mall in the GPO, in where the post office part is, and it's on the second floor, and up on the second floor there's very nice shops, including one of them that sells beautiful die-cast model cars, buses, trains, factory, uh, that kind of stuff. Like Corgi, Dinky, Matchbox, really high quality stuff in glass cases. And I have a memory of being a kid going there and buying some dinky collectibles of Thunderbirds. I bought the Thunderbird 2 there for my birthday. And the die-cast model. That shop doesn't exist. That arcade doesn't exist. But I have a memory of it as clear as the memory of my first day in school. That's because it exists in another recurrence. It doesn't exist in this. So there's differences. There's aesthetic and environmental differences between each occurrence. So sorry for waffling on again today, and I hope I've given you some information that can allow you to develop your own creativity and enlightenment. Yes, the dice is thrown. Yes, you can land on the head of a snake or the bottom of a ladder. But the thing is to learn from the trip up and the trip down. So by the time you get to 111 and it's time for your next recurrence, you have a lot more ammo in your karmic arsenal to help you in the next recurrence. So look after yourselves. Sanguine gnosis. Have a beautiful weekend, and love you all. And I'm fingering